ceremony.
Here?
No. Where's that?
It's at the pavilion, Center Lake Pavilion,
Oh, okay.
What time is that, Ron?
6:30.
6:30? Well, Lord willing, we'll be done in 10 or 15 minutes.
No, but I had a conversation with my secretary about it, and
Did
of
you?
course, there are enough people, there are many people around, running around now who just see that in history books. They have no actual memory of it.
Right, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Sad.
The rest of us knew
That
exactly
is
where we
amazing.
were.
Yeah. I found an interesting fact. Cindy Dowd's birthday is on 9/11, and my birthday is on Pearl Harbor Day. So I'm gonna ask the other guy on the council when their birthday is. Pretty amazing kind of coincidence.
Yeah, wow.
Mine's D-Day.
See?
My wife's Halloween, she gets you on the beat.
Yep. Oh, whenever you want, boss.
We're ready.
Yeah, 5:15. We'll go ahead and call the September meeting of the Board of Aviation Commissioners of the City of Warsaw to order. You should all have received your packets. I had to borrow mine because my electronics is not working, but I do have the hard copy in here. First thing on the agenda would be the minutes from the August 14th meeting.
I make a motion to accept the minutes as presented.
Second. Been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the August 14th meeting. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Next, approval of claims. Nick, what in particular do you have for us?
Nothing too much out of the ordinary. The Holland Morose for $11,020 is what you guys had approved at last month's meeting for our liability insurance. Outside of that, pretty normal month unless there's any specific questions that I can entertain tonight.
Right stuff for 222850 is,
Our payroll software,
oh, that's right, we were just talking about that.
yeah, the city is going to new payroll software, and that was our share of that.
Okay, well, that's just a one shot.
Correct.
Deal.
There will be a smaller monthly payment. I haven't been told if that's going to be monthly or annually that we will pay that per employee, but that was our cost to build the system for the city.
Is that gonna be every year then?
That was a one-time.
One-time
Yeah.
shot,
Fee, just
okay.
set it up.
All right.
And then it's a few dollars per employee per year is what, I don't remember that number, but I can get that to you for the next.
That's not a big deal.
Okay.
What was Monteith Tire? What did we,
We had a few tires we needed to replace. A couple of them were on our jet truck, and those tires are incredible. They're 8-ply and they're very expensive.
yeah, okay.
So that's where that cost came from.
Okay.
Any further questions about the claims?
Yep, I move we accept the claims and especially the $78,750.59 for Accent Aviation Group.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the claims and individually, specifically the Ascent Aviation claim. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed say nay. Motion carried. Okay, next, do we have any visitors you wish to recognize, Mr. King? Hi, how are you? I recognize him as a visitor, so that's why.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay. And I always prefer to do Ken's report first before yours, and so I'm gonna let Ken do his report. Fire
Okay.
away, Mr. Ross.
I apologize for not getting that out before the Friday deadline, but I did bring a quite extensive report this time. We've had quite a bit of activity. For those of you that weren't aware, we did have a grant application for the design phase of the rest of runway 1836. Jay signed that. We got that sent up to the FAA. The total project will be for $160,000 with 90% or $144,000 of that being federal funds. And then the remaining $16,000 will be split between NDOT and yourself for 5% or $8,000. We expect the grant to be here within the next 2 weeks because the FAA will be shutting down their fiscal year. And the work is majority of it has been done, but we'll wait until after you get the grant before we have a task order and so forth. On runway 1836 rehab, we had talked to you previously about the reason we had went ahead and hurried up with the design is there was a potential for some discretionary funds in 2018. Part of this supplemental funding that the FAA got approved with their latest budget. But as it turns out that there is only about 8 airports within the state of Indiana that qualify for it in 2018. You will qualify in 2019 and 2020, but since there wasn't any opportunities this year for the use of the supplemental funding, we just tabled or slowed down on the design of the runway rehab. And if you might recall, we had to do some changes to the airport layout plan to move the thresholds to make sure that that is all entirely a runway and not a runway with extended taxiways on both ends. We are doing an alternative for concrete as well as asphalt both to see. We have to do a life cycle cost analysis over a multi-year period to see which one is the most efficient for the life of the pavement. And then we'll show that to the FAA and we'll pick the one that it's very formulaic. They give you a guideline for the life cycle cost analysis and you plug in numbers and whichever one comes out to have the lowest life cycle cost wins. In addition, Nick had asked us to revise some of the profile grades, I guess from the years of extensions and things on that runway. There's a pretty good belly in the middle of it, right across from the terminal building. We're going to raise that at least a foot and make those longer vertical curves to take some of that belly out and some of the, it's almost like a dip in the runway. And if you hit it just right when you're landing, it's, you think you're coming down, but then all of a sudden you start right back up again. So we'll get that taken care of. On the runway extension program, I had a call yesterday with a guy from AEP who is the new guy that's been assigned to the engineer and doing the cost opinions. He says they're about 95% done with the cost opinion. They do think they can use those structures. And if you've ever driven up and down 69, there's a piece, quite a long stretch of power lines being replaced with those, if you've ever seen them. So they can use those structures. He said he'll have the cost estimate probably done next week, I should say. Also too.
Ken, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
Are we still going to have available the funds from that other,
The other grant?
yeah, that other grant? That's still available?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
For the design portion.
the design portion of the.
AEP had been paid a certain amount.
Yeah, AEP's got more than enough money to finish up their preliminary designs and things.
Okay.
So there's money still sitting in the coffers.
Yeah.
So that we don't owe them anything, or we will not owe them anything until we move forward.
Okay.
I think you're also aware too that there have been some ADO personnel changes. The new person's name, if we haven't shared it before, her name is Delora Small. And we've been working with her and one of the guys that is training her to discuss some possibilities of isolating the power lines. One of the things, if you recall, we did a study with Greg Sweeney back in the early days to see if what improvements could be made to the airport approaches and things with the lowering of the power lines. The one thing that they didn't evaluate was the departure surfaces, and there's a departure surface off your existing runway that the power lines also penetrate. And it is causing some minimums to your departure minimums, making pilots climb out of a steeper gradient. So I approached the FAA guy and said, you know, we could make some improvements to the departure surface, whether the road moves or not. Does that make sense that that is an independent utility project? And he thought it was. So we are doing a real brief airspace study with the flight procedures people to confirm that. And if that's the case, we can break out the power lines separate from the road and the runway extension and all that stuff and possibly get that accelerated.
Okay, good.
we are thinking and hoping that Nick and I have strategized that maybe we can apply that supplemental funding that you would be available for in 2019 for that project, because that's 100% funded, there's no matching funds. So even if the cost goes up, if there's no matching share, that's good for you and your
Yeah.
local share. So,
So if I got a good handle on this, in terms of the history of this project, we wanted to get the power lines moved and or lowered.
right,
After dealing with FAA for years, they said, well, you know, we want to do that as part of, we're going to require a road relocation, and we do that as part of a runway extension. And we said, okay, well, we'll do that, and now they're back to, we might be back to
we might be able.
where we wanted to do in the first place, which was power lines lower, and then worry about the
Well,
other.
we still can't move the threshold,
Yeah,
and move, and get the more landing length though, until we move the road.
right.
But the bonus of breaking out the power lines is it gets us down lower, much lower overall program costs. So the benefit cost analysis may not come into play. And the road, doing all the studies on the road and stuff is the time consuming part as well too, because at some point we'll have to do a runway protection zone study to show that, because the shorter loop is going to be in the RPZ. And the same guy has given me an example of one that did in Kenosha, that's passed. So,
Okay, well, as long as I've got a clear understanding, we're back to where we were in the first place, let's get those power lines moved and lowered, so, because that's safety regardless of all the other
well,
technicalities in terms of how you're supposed to depart and how you're supposed to land. You physically, if you move it out of the way, you're making it safer.
right, you're making improvements to the existing, and we've been trying to argue that, but the good thing that happened is there was a memo that came out several years ago within the FAA, and it was an internal memo that says, please remind all of your airports that they need to be getting their departure surfaces clear as well. Well, now that's what we're trying to do, is get the departure surface clear.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, keep on it.
Okay, will do. And then, so I'll just briefly wrap up then on the airport layout plan. If you recall, we had to do some pen and ink changes to the ALP to, like I say, make sure 1836 is 100% runway. That's being finalized at this point. And the FAA has also assigned another gentleman named Gary Wilson, who is a very well-experienced, knowledgeable man. I've known him for many, many years. He's going to be taking over the review of the overall ALP, which we think can help get that off the top dead center as well too. So, if there's no other questions.
Any other questions for Ken?
For me.
No?
Okay, thank you for the update on this, Ken.
Thank you.
Keep it up.
Will do.
Okay, Mr. King.
All right, we'll start with the fuel usage report. As you guys can see, we are back up for our year-to-date. We're up 4,000 gallons in jet fuel, and we are up, oh, I just lost the number here. We are up about 4,000 gallons in jet fuel, and then in August this year compared to last year, we're up about 10,000 gallons. Avgas, we're still down a little bit compared to where we were last year. But we are still seeing that upward tick in our jet fuel sales, and this month has continued to be a busy month so far, so we're hoping that trend continues here in the months to finish out the year. And unless you have specific questions on that, I can talk about the income report for a minute.
Okay, fire away, talk about the income report.
Obviously, we had a pretty good month, ended up in the black. $19,692.33 for the quarter. We're still in the red, but we are pulling our way back out of that. And same thing for the year, but we're hoping that as these fuel sales continue to go up, our year end, we have a couple major purchases, some possible equipment purchases that we'll be talking about here in the next month or two. And we'll decide if we would like to move forward with those purchases or not, to see how we're ending up the year. But with that fuel price structure change that we talked about last month, next year I think we'll be sitting in a very, very good location for the airport and starting to put some of that money back into savings for these major projects that are coming up. Then unless you have
Okay.
any questions.
Any questions about that for Nick? Okay, new business.
Two things for you this evening. One of them a walk-in. I'll talk about that in just a second. What I'm handing you right now on page 4, there you'll need to just sign for the at your location right there. This is the land lease that you approved at last month's meeting for Blessed Beginnings Broadcasting, Inc., when Brian Walsh purchased John Hamm's hangar. So we'll just need to get signatures on those 2 leases for them. And then if the board will allow it, I have a walk-in that was brought to me yesterday for another hangar sale, hangar 27. Is that something you're okay with entertaining tonight?
Hangar 27?
This is a
Okay.
different hangar.
Okay.
Steve,
Well, these other things, but we've approved both these other ones,
you have
right?
approved these,
Yeah.
yep, this just needed
Okay.
signatures. So this is for, this would be, if you approve this, then I will have a lease for you to sign next month. Steve Petro, owner of Hangar 27, is giving notice to sell his hangar to DJ Kierpal, and he would just like the board to waive their right of first refusal for the selling of that hangar. If you so approve, then we will move forward with that, and I'll have a lease for you at next month's meeting. So we would just need a motion.
We need a motion on that. I make that motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, been moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Motion carried. Consistent with our goal to get out of the hangar business. Stay out of the hangar business.
And then I have one more last minute item. Next month, our meeting would be October the 9th,
But
second
you got
Tuesday.
state,
I have Aviation Indiana that week, so if the board so chooses, I propose that we move our public meeting to October the 16th. It is the 3rd Tuesday of the month. If that works for everyone, we will go ahead and make sure that that notice is given.
October what?
16th.
October the 16th.
that will not work for me.
Okay. Would you prefer to go later in the month, or do you want to just skip October and meet in November?
No, I still want to do it, but how about the 15th?
That should work.
How's the 15th for you?
I'm good.
The
I
only
have,
thing-
we're expecting a grandbaby in Louisville, and we may be going anytime in October. So I don't know, it's up in the air.
You realize the baby will arrive one way or the other?
Yes, that's what I'm afraid of.
Well, and the 15th, there's a common council meeting at 7 PM. So we could still have our meeting, we just need to make sure that we are out of here by 7 PM, which I think we
Can't
would be.
help but think we would, so.
I'll tell my wife you mentioned that, Jay.
That's fine, that's right, yeah, tell her it's nice, that baby's gonna be here, whether she's down there or not, so.
See if they signed the minutes. Did you sign the
They
minutes?
did, yeah.
Okay. So we will, it's okay to move the next meeting, October
15th.
15th, 5:15?
Yeah.
Okay, any other business?
I just was gonna say, I don't know if Ken cannot, he has another board meeting on that Monday, but we'll be able to fill him in, and if he has
Or I
any.
might, it's in Huntington, so it's very close, so I might be able to attend both, just be late for theirs.
Say what time is theirs?
Theirs is at 5:30, but it lasts longer than 15 minutes.
I've driven to Huntington, but you're not gonna make it that quick.
No, I know.
Okay, well, whatever happens will work out, we've had to move ours, so
All right.
if you can't make it, you can't make it. Anything further for the, good of the order?
Yep. Nothing.
Okay, nothing further, meeting adjourned.
Very good.
Thanks, DJ. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care.
No problem.